Hey guys, today I'm going to be reviewing the latest adaptation of Dracula. So you guys, before I head into my thoughts and feelings on this latest adaptation of Dracula, probably some spoilers. I'm probably definitely going to be mentioning some spoilers, not only for the TV show, but maybe even the book as well, if you've never read the original book by Bram Stoker. But yeah, if you're worried about any sort of spoilers or reveals, you might want to turn away right now, come back at a later point. So yeah, you guys, my thoughts and feelings on this latest adaptation of Dracula. I'm going to be kind of looking at my notes as well as I'm going through this video. A pleasant surprise for the start of the new year of 2020. We got an adaptation of Dracula, the book originally written by Bram Stoker. Yeah, put out by the BBC, and then Netflix also got it. I watched it through Netflix, and yeah, it's only 3 episodes. You guys, it's only 3 episodes, but the episodes are like an hour and a half a piece, which was kind of cool. It's like you're kind of watching little movies there. And, yeah, this was produced, and I think, was it written by too? I know it was definitely, like, produced by, but I'm not sure if they wrote it as well. I think they wrote it as well, but yeah, Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss, who were a partnership. They also did Sherlock, that had Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman. If you're familiar with Sherlock, I think you can kind of go into this adaptation of Dracula, kind of get in those same sort of vibes. I think you'll kind of know what you're getting into. Kind of just talking about my love of the original classic by Bram Stoker. I love the story of Dracula. Yeah, guys, it's easily one of my top favorite classics, and yeah, one of the few classics that I've read multiple times. there's classics, even though there's a lot of classics I love, it's still kind of difficult to reread classics a lot of times. But yeah, Dracula, there's just something about Dracula that's very easy to get into. It's not heavy or dull. It's just one of the classics that's more easy to get into and you can understand it. And yeah, if you have a working knowledge of pop culture when it comes to Dracula, it also just kind of helps getting into Bram Stoker's story as well. I love the original story, and when I was first getting into this trio of episodes, kind of the big thing was that they were going to follow a little more closely with the original story. Not 100% following the story, but yeah, a good chunk of it it's from the original book in some ways. So yeah, this trio of episodes, you guys, this adaptation of Dracula, I definitely have a lot to say, and I have a lot of conflicting feelings about it, and so does the rest of the world. Let's be real. I have read so many reviews about this adaptation, and a lot of people are just as confused and conflicted as I am. People aren't really sure how they feel about it, because there's elements of this adaptation that people love, and then other elements that people don't like. Nobody can agree. That's the thing. Nobody can agree on how they feel, because some people just downright hated this series, just downright hated it. They didn't like anything. There's other people who liked maybe a good majority of it, and then there's other people who are kind of in the middle, like they don't really know how they feel about it. They liked bits and pieces of it, but overall still didn't entirely like the whole thing. So yeah, for me, how I felt about this entire series, I think I am more on the side of positivity rather than negativity, I suppose. I definitely enjoyed this more than I disliked it. The series, it can be rather absurd. It can be rather absurd and silly, a little campy in places. Sometimes it's like it knows what it is, you know, it knows what it is, and it's not taking itself too seriously, but then sometimes it does take itself too seriously. It's really contrasting in some ways, which makes it kind of confusing. And it's darkly humorous. I was not expecting this to be as humorous as it was. It is very darkly humorous and comedic. It's also rather grotesque. in places. For God's sake, in episode 1, Dracula, there's a wolf, and Dracula is the wolf, and he like busts out of the wolf. You guys, he's tearing apart the wolf. It's very grotesque, and he's naked, covered in like blood and guts and stuff. Yeah, there's stuff with fingernails cut. Oh god, the fingernails. You guys, the fingernails was the most disturbing thing, for God's sake. Yeah, there's lots of blood and gore for the most part, and kind of the big thing going on with this entire series, it's a big question of trying to unravel who Dracula is, trying to uncover the myth and legend almost of Dracula. What makes Dracula Dracula? Why does he not like going out in the sun? Why can't he see his reflection? What is it about the crucifix or the cross that he can't stand? That's what a lot of this series is trying to explore, is trying to unravel him as a character and unravel what a vampire is. Why does a vampire act this way, essentially, towards mirrors or sun or crosses? And yeah, this series, in some ways, it does remain faithful to a degree to Bram Stoker's original story, especially episode 1. I think episode 1, until you get to the last 30 minutes, the first hour of episode 1 is very faithful and loyal to Bram Stoker's original. And then episode 2, because that is entirely on the ship, and in Bram Stoker's original, everything about the ship is kind of just done on like a page or two, essentially. You don't know what happens on the ship. You just know that some chaos happened on this ship because, yeah, Dracula was on it. But yeah, you don't have a first eye look about what's happening on the ship. So yeah, episode 2 is totally about the ship, which was interesting. And then yeah, episode 3, like I said, I'm getting into some spoilers here, you guys. Episode 3, twist. You guys, twist. We're in the modern day, because episode 2 ends and Dracula, he's kind of been in a coma this entire time under the ocean, and he wakes up and he's in the modern day. So yeah, episode 3 is in the modern day, but you do have characters like Lucy and Dr. Seward. So yeah, there's definitely liberties taken. There's a lot of liberties taken. But yeah, episode 1 is the most loyal, and then episode 2 takes a familiar thing from the book, but yeah, really enhances it and makes it its own thing. So yeah, kind of get into, I guess, a little bit more of some specifics here. What I was enjoying and perhaps what I wasn't enjoying. Let's talk about episode 1. Like I mentioned, episode 1 is the most loyal adaptation of the book. Like I said, except for maybe the last 30 minutes, because the last 30 minutes really just goes wild and crazy out of nowhere, really unexpected. And yet, episode 1, it has that, you know, that classic gothic atmosphere that you expect with a story when it comes to Dracula. And yeah, I love John Heffernan's performance of Jonathan Harker. John Heffernan is such a great actor. I've seen him in numerous other British shows, and he's like a character actor, you know. He's definitely a character actor, and he really made Jonathan Harker his own. And he had a lot to do, especially with the makeup, because he had a lot of makeup work done to make him look really grotesque and nasty, because he's been, you know, vampirized, essentially. And yet, episode 1, you know that you're about to get into one hell of an adaptation when Sister Agatha, she's interviewing Jonathan Harker, and she just asks him point blank at the start of episode 1, hey, did you have sex? Did you have sex with Dracula? And it's like, wait, what? We're going there. That's where this adaptation is going. We're going there. Hey, did Dracula and Jonathan Harker, did they have a thing, you guys? So you know you're in for one hell of a ride right there at the very start of the episode. But yeah, episode 1 was just really great. I loved it. There is a bit of a slower pace to it, but that's okay, I think. And then episode 2. Episode 2, this is one of those episodes people either loved it or hated it. It kind of just depends on you as a viewer. Episode 2 was my absolute favorite, you guys. And this is the one that takes place completely on the boat, which, like I mentioned, in Bram Stoker's original, you're not on the boat. You hear about the boat, and you know that something has happened, that people are dead. So episode 2, what I loved about episode 2 is that it's almost like a parody or a satire of an Agatha Christie book, almost. Because, you know, with an Agatha Christie story, you're introduced to a bunch of characters, and it's a big whodunit. Who is the killer? Who has done what? But in the case of episode 2, like I said, it's like a parody or a satire of Agatha Christie, because you are introduced to all these characters. It almost comes across as a whodunit, but the thing is, you, the viewer, you know exactly who done it. It's Dracula. So you, the viewer, it's kind of funny watching the episode because you know exactly what's going on. You know exactly what's going on for the most part, because there are a few little reveals and twists here and there. But for the most part, you know who it is. You know who is murdering everybody. It's Dracula. And it's just amusing kind of watching everybody else kind of fumble about, and it's like, oh my god, what's going on? So I love that. I kind of loved how episode 2 was essentially like a parody or a satire of Agatha Christie. It was kind of brilliant, in my opinion. So yeah, I think episode 2 was just really brilliantly and cleverly done, really adapting a very small portion of Bram Stoker's novel into something much bigger and grander. And then episode 3 is where we go into the modern era. Yeah, guys, we go into the modern era. I still really liked this episode. I think I was thrown for a loop that it was modern day, because I think I definitely would have preferred the whole trio of episodes to be in a historic setting. I definitely would have preferred that. But I still liked episode 3 just fine. I think a big problem with episode 3 might have just been a change of tone, if that makes sense, because episodes 1 and 2, they're very absurd and silly, and they don't really take themselves too seriously. But episode 3 is where I felt like the writing was taking itself very seriously, and it was trying to be really dark and deep, and the rest of the series wasn't really like that, I suppose. So there just felt like a really dramatic tone shift, I suppose, if that makes sense. But I mean, I liked the modern day setting. It was fine. It worked for me. I really liked what they did with Lucy in particular, because yeah, in Bram Stoker's original, Lucy, she's the popular girl. She's beautiful. All of the guys are after her, and it was interesting to see Lucy modernized, into a girl who's obsessed with social media, essentially, and she's constantly taking pictures of herself. But yeah, deep down, Lucy, she has a very dark side inside. Even though she has this life that looks picture perfect, her life is not perfect. Deep down, she's actually seriously depressed and perhaps suicidal, since she's going after Dracula and letting Dracula drink her blood, essentially. She is chasing death, and Dracula is like death incarnate, almost. So I really liked how they adapted Lucy in particular. I think she worked very well. And yeah, I'm just so upset. It's like I don't know how to feel about the ending of episode 3, because and I guess Agatha, that's the thing too, talking about Sister Agatha, who you get revealed that she's Van Helsing. She's a lady version of Van Helsing. Sister Agatha, I loved that performance of Sister Agatha in episodes 1 and 2, but I think it's supposed to be she died at the end of episode 2. And then yeah, the character of Zoe is like her great whatever. They just happen to look alike. And I think I missed that. I missed that dynamic between Agatha and Dracula, because I freaking loved that, you guys. And I think that dynamic was not the same with Dracula and Zoe, even though it's the same actress. So I was a little iffy about that. And then, yeah, they kill Dracula at the end, you guys. I was very surprised about that. I was not expecting the show to kill Dracula, because I was fully expecting them that he would still be alive at the end, and they would try to make another series out of it. And I just don't really see how another series would work. Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss have mentioned, hey, we have some ideas that we could possibly do for a season 2, but I just don't know how that would work, to be quite honest. It doesn't really make any sort of logical sense to me, because the way it ended, it just kind of felt natural, almost. And it's like, why undo what you did there? But yeah, they killed Dracula, which was a little upsetting. But I did like the reveals, essentially. Why can't he do this? Why can't a vampire do certain things? And yeah, a lot of what it boiled down to is that Dracula is just ashamed of himself. He is a coward at heart. And yeah, he can't die. You know, he can't let himself die, essentially. He's afraid of death. That's why he's afraid of, like, the cross and whatnot, because of what the cross represents. The cross represents sacrifice and death, and in turn, that's why he shuns the cross, essentially. So I liked the explanations about, you know, the cross and the sun and whatnot, why he's afraid of those certain things. I liked the explanation there, because a lot of it did make some sort of sense, I suppose. Some people loved that, some people hated it, just kind of depending on how people interpreted some of those ending reveals with Dracula. But it made Dracula interesting, you know, like, oh, this guy, he's a monster, you know, he's a monster, but there is something deeper there, about why he is the way that he is, essentially. So yeah, just talking about the actors really quickly, I mean, essentially you kind of just got two big actors. Claes Bang, I think his name is pronounced Claes. Claes Bang, who played, if I'm not mistaken, he's a Danish actor, if I looked that up correctly. He was definitely one of the highlights. You guys, Claes Bang as Dracula. Perfect, excellent casting. He played Dracula very energetic and lively, very seductive, you guys. I was like, ooh, I am all about this Dracula. Yeah, and yeah, he could be scary. And yeah, he plays his own version of Dracula, definitely. He plays his own version of Dracula, but he does have nuances of, like, classic performances, you know, Dracula from, like, what, the 50s or 60s, you know, some of those adaptations of Dracula. He definitely pays homage to some of those versions of Dracula. You can definitely see that in his performance, but he definitely makes the character his own. Very, very scary, very, very, very sexy at times. I loved his performance, you guys. I cannot gush enough about his performance. The writing might have done him dirty a few times, but he always made the best of it at any given time. I definitely hope to see him in more projects in the future. I definitely would love to see him in other future projects, give him a chance to kind of shine in some other areas. And I really liked what they did with Dracula initially, because in episode 1, since it is the most faithful and loyal to Bram Stoker's original, in the original, Dracula is a very just old man. You know, he's very old. He has, like, white hair, he's wrinkly, he's just very, very old and kind of decrepit when you are first introduced to Dracula. So I really liked how they did that at first, that they put Claes Bang, he was covered up in makeup and prosthetics, and yeah, the wig, and yeah, he had a very, like, stereotypical, like, Transylvanian accent, you know, stereotypical when it comes to Dracula. And at first I was like, oh dear God, I hope he's not using this accent for the whole show. I cannot take this accent. So once I finally understood what they were doing there, that he was drinking the blood and the blood was making him younger, because yeah, he started as an old man, then he got progressively younger until, you know, the actor's own age. So I really liked what they were doing there, and that yeah, as he was drinking other people's blood, it was explaining how he can adapt, like, a British accent, how he can, like, if someone was speaking in another language, he can understand what that person was saying, and he could say it too. That someone's blood, like, he was absorbing somebody, essentially. He was absorbing somebody's essence and their personality and their knowledge, I suppose. I really liked how that was explored, kind of explaining how he can be rather intelligent at times, you know, because he has that knowledge that he was absorbing from somebody else just from drinking their blood. So I really like that. And then Dolly Wells, who played Sister Agatha / Zoe, yeah, we get the big reveal, you guys, that she is Van Helsing. And who else predicted she was going to be Van Helsing? In episode 1, it reached a certain point in episode 1 that Sister Agatha, the way she was kind of talking about things, because she seemed really obsessed about trying to unravel Dracula and his secrets and his mysteries, and trying to understand him, and just the legend of the vampire in general. It kind of occurred to me, I was like, you know what, she's making me think of Van Helsing. You know, I was like, she's making me think of Van Helsing, but I don't think she's Van Helsing, you know? So then, yeah, there it goes. There goes the twist. And sure enough, she is Van Helsing. She's a Lady Van Helsing. So I was like, oh my god. I was like, I sort of predicted it. You know, I was like, I sort of predicted it, but I did not think she was actually going to be Van Helsing, you know? I love that twist, though. I absolutely love the twist that she was Van Helsing. It made total sense, and it worked for me. And yeah, Sister Agatha, you're introduced to her. She's an atheist nun. She's obsessed with Dracula, essentially, and vampires. She's trying to figure out the mystery of vampires. Yeah, she's sassy. She's fast-talking. She kind of just says whatever. You know, she's a nun. When you're first introduced to her, you're thinking, oh, here's a pure, innocent nun. But yeah, she says the most outlandish, crazy things, and it's like, oh my goodness. And then you realize early, she's not your average nun, especially when she just point blank asks Jonathan Harker, hey, did you have sex with Dracula? So yeah, as soon as she says that, you know exactly what you're getting into with her character. And yeah, Dolly Wells, her and Claes Bang, seriously, their chemistry was off the chain. It was off the chain. I loved how they just worked off of each other. It was really spectacular to watch. And yeah, it's like she was an equal to Dracula, you know? She was an equal to him in every way, and I love that. So you guys, that is it for my thoughts and feelings on Dracula, these 3 episodes of this adaptation of Dracula. In the comments below, how did you guys feel about Dracula? Like I mentioned, I'm definitely a little confused and conflicted about how I feel, but I think overall I really enjoyed it, to be quite honest. I enjoyed it more than I disliked it, and it's definitely something that I think I would love to rewatch again. That might sound odd. I think I would definitely like to rewatch it again, if only just for Claes Bang's performance. Yeah, guys, just to watch him play Dracula again, I could definitely sit and watch the whole show again. But yeah, I'm definitely curious your opinions. If you've watched it, how you felt about it, what were your favorite episodes? Like I said, my favorites were definitely the first 2, episode 2 definitely being my favorite. So yeah, you guys, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye, guys.